go. Hello, everyone from Buffalo, New York. I'm so pleased to be joining you today and really honored to be part of somebody like James Brown's presentation. I just thought that that was so well done. Um, we're going to talk a little bit about incorporating those soft skills into either your DL or your in-person classroom. I love this quote: "The early bird doesn't necessarily get the worm, not unless that bird knows how to work on a team and put together a coherent email presentation." So let's start thinking about what we're talking about when we look at soft and hard skills. Soft skills refer to a cluster of personal qualities, habits, attitudes, and social graces that make someone a good employee and compatible to work with. A really nice thing to do with your students, because one thing you're going to hear me say over and over in the next half an hour is that incorporating soft skills has to happen every day and regularly in your classes. If students don't hear this all the time, they're not going to start to incorporate it, because you really often are asking them to work in a setting that's not going to parallel how they're at home. One of the things we talk about all the time is how people speak at work. How do you talk? You're going to be talking differently with your supervisor or your colleagues than you are with your friends when you're shooting baskets on the court or hanging out at a microbrewery. And so it's the kind of thing that has to happen all the time. A great activity to do with your students. At the very beginning, when you first meet them in your class, ask them to define what they think soft skills and hard skills are. It's a great group activity. You can put them into breakout rooms and have them work together. You can have them do it individually. And then you can talk about that, discuss what they've identified, why that works, see which things maybe need to be redefined from one column to the other. And then the best follow-up is whatever, 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later, have them do it again and see how they now understand the difference and they're getting better at identifying those skills in their own selves. If you look at some of the data, soft skills, communication skills, leadership and teamwork, critical thinking and problem solving, managing multiple projects, these are all skills that managers feel are lacking often when they interview people or when they start them on a job. And these are the kinds of skills that what you do in your classroom every time you're with those students in an academic setting, you can give them practice in all of these skills and you can remind them of the importance of these skills. And we're going to see how you can do that. Again, I know I say it often in this presentation, but it's so important. It can't be occasional. It has to be something that you're often doing in your classroom. And you have to explicitly teach students what these skills are. Often people think that communication, well, if you're good at chatting with people, that's communication. That's not what we're talking about in terms of office skills, as you all know, as what we know in terms of a workplace skill. And so you're going to practice that with your students all the time. You're going to give them opportunities to lead a program, to do some peer sharing. And those personal attributes. Make sure that your students work with these words. Do they understand what these words mean? Do they see the difference between communication in a social setting and in a workplace setting? Do they understand why it's valuable to walk into a class, to walk into a workplace comfortable with these skills? In a remote setting, what are some of the ways that you can incorporate those soft skills regularly? So assign collaborative work whenever you can with your students. Use breakout rooms, use document sharing, make sure that your students have opportunities to report back. Have them do follow-up journaling. Make sure that there's writing assigned to the collaborative work so that they can practice that professional writing opportunity. And make sure that you're implementing network activities. Those are the kinds of things that can be done through appropriate apps, through professional websites. Help your students understand the difference between the kind of social networking that they're doing for their own personal lives, their own fun, to follow up on their hobbies, to follow up on their interests, and the kind of networking activities and the kind of apps and websites that your students should be looking at and should be aware of in a professional networking setting. Have a dress for an online office day. We were all entertained by all these stories of people who forgot they are online and they were in their gym shorts and they forgot that they left the bathroom door open behind them. It was a lot of fun during COVID, but because working online is obviously going to be a permanent part of workplace skills, have your students do that once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. Have a dress for an online office day, and then always role play workplace scenarios with your students. I'm sure that so many of you have those under your belt, are aware of them, but two really good places to develop those scenarios. You can always search online, workplace scenarios, role play. A whole lot of different activities pop up. But hopefully you're incorporating career exploration and on-site job settings in your classroom. Ask those employers, the people that are coming in to talk about, this is our business, this is who we hire and why, have them create those workplace scenarios, because they're going to come up with things that you might not even be aware of because it's specific to that workplace. Something that's specific to a construction, to healthcare, to food services. So that's a really good place to come up with those scenarios. Talk to the people, to your partners in the community. And of course, include remote settings, because not only are you teaching in a DL environment, but there's a possibility that at least partially, when your students get their jobs, they're going to be in some part doing remote settings. And then in person, because I know here in Buffalo, so many of our teachers are hybrid. They teach remotely sometimes, they teach in person sometimes. Begin each class with a handshake. Don't let people forget that. Besides the fact that it reminds them of the value of that, it sets the tone that, yes, it's an academic setting. Yes, it's a supportive setting. We want to make sure that the students understand that. But that handshake also reminds them that they have a job to do in this class, just as they will once they get into the workplace. And that it's not going to be a place to be silly or a place to be casual or a place to be playing your game on your phone while you're also learning. So begin each class with a handshake. Create those formal and those informal speaking opportunities. It's always important for people to practice speaking, what the appropriate way to speak in each different setting is. And make it not only how do you present yourself in a meeting, how do you present yourself online, how do you present yourself when you first meet a client or a customer. Utilize study groups in person, and of course you can also do that in a remote setting. You can use breakout groups, you can use document sharing, but utilize study groups. That's such a great opportunity for people to realize the different work that's involved in a workplace and to prioritize punctuality and attendance. I know in adult ed, we are all very conscious that often our adult learners have very challenging lives, very crazy lives. James gave us an example of a student who's homeless right now. So I'm not going to put that aside. I know there's always those opportunities for people, those situations in life where punctuality and attendance is going to be a challenge. But in general, the expectation, if there's no other challenges involved, punctuality and attendance, because it's an important part. We just hired a new administrative assistant here, and one of the women who came in for an interview was 20 minutes late. I wouldn't talk to her. I wouldn't talk to her, and my colleague was appalled. She was like, her resume is beautiful. I can't believe this. I was like, that's not, to me, that's not an appropriate place to start. So do remember that although we're going to build in that flexibility, recognizing that our adults have lives, but if everything's good, punctuality and attendance are important. Practicing the art of small talk, not only is that important because when you're talking about soft skills, you're not, and again, this is a soft skills versus hard skills, you're not just talking about the ability to complete those tasks, but those abilities to interact successfully with people above you and your own colleagues and the people below you. I have always said the person that you have to be the kindest to in your workplace is anybody who's responsible for anything that involves fixing things, being a janitor, cleaning things, because A, those that's invaluable. You need that in your workplace. But B, they know everything. They know everybody. They know where everything is. They know what happened 10 years ago. They will help you with that. Let your students understand that. Let your students practice the art of small talk and conversation cards, which are all over the web. Just Google it. They will show up. And then another thing which you can do in a remote setting or in person is to make intentional assignment tweaks. Because one of the big things, if you go think about the prior slide, that one of the things managers said was that people were not problem solvers. They were not good at critical thinking. They were not good at thinking on their feet or switching gears if something had changed. Make intentional assignment tweaks. Make sure that your students, they've sat down, they have something that they need to be doing for you, and 20 minutes in, you make a change to that. And that's a really good opportunity, both remotely and in person, for students to practice those soft skills. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Sorry, guys. Go back. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the resources that I would recommend you take a look at if you're thinking of incorporating these soft skills. And again, you know what I'm going to say one more time. This can't be an occasional thing. This can't be every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, we're going to talk about soft skills. This has to be something that you're always incorporating into what you do every day with your learners. Soft Skills to Pay the Bills curriculum, these are all live links. So when you download these yourself, you'll be able to click onto them. Soft Skills to Pay the Bills is an absolutely wonderful curriculum. It's got soft skills bingo. It's got a lot of vocabulary activities. So tie that, you're doing HSE prep, GED prep, tie those vocabulary words into the lessons you're doing. Tie it into a grammar lesson, tie it into an essay writing practice. There's a lot of different activities. One of my favorite activities, because this is a part of soft skills with your learners, there's a red light, green light, yellow light. And that's an opportunity to talk to students about, this isn't really soft skills, but it's a little bit of the piece of it, those uncomfortable conversations, helping your students realize that they need to brush their teeth every morning before they go to work. They need to remember that their clothes should be clean when they go to work. They need to remember that they have to be careful about some of those personal things that you do if you're sitting home alone, as opposed to sitting in the workplace. There's some great activities in Soft Skills to Pay the Bills that help your students understand how you as a teacher can bring those topics up in a really fun and comfortable way. Teachers pay teachers. I'm sure everyone's very familiar with Teachers Pay Teachers. There's a great hard and soft skills sort activity where the students get to choose which of these is a hard skill, which of these is a soft skills. There are a lot of those workplace scenarios in there. There's a really good activity that you can do with your own students where there's a student profile. Anna plays basketball at a neighborhood basketball league, and she's well known because she's very good at keeping the scores and the stats. She's also volunteers at this organization. She's good with this. She was very successful with computer work. There are these little student scenarios, and your students are asked to identify which of those are hard skills, which of those are soft skills, and how would both serve Anna well in a workplace setting. When you've worked with your students a little bit and they're comfortable with the terms and they're comfortable with you and each other, Have your students write those scenarios. Those are great. They're writing anonymous scenarios, but you know they're writing their own situations down, and it'll help them see what soft skills they already have and what soft skills they're going to want to develop a little more. And you're going to be able to use that to continue to customize how you're presenting soft skills in your classroom. The California Career Resource Network, that is actually tied very closely into the national CCR standards. So if that is something that often guides your instruction, or something that your management it feels is very critical to be included, you don't have to come up with that yourself. The CCR network is going to help you put that into your classroom and into your planning. And then the employability skills profile guide, that's a really good self-assessment that you can use with your students. Also, there's a lot of classroom-based activities, some lesson plans that are associated with that skills profile guide. So often you see these sort of tests where you can check this and check that. And this takes it a step further. This then lets you look at the results, every student's individual skills profile, and lets them apply it in lessons that you can use in your classroom. Don't forget to go to Pinterest. There's all kinds of activities in there. There's posters you can print out. You can do some really nice 8.5 by 11. I know in a live classroom, we are always posting lots of different posters around the room that remind people about those skills that they need. And just like Jason had that beautiful banner behind him, you could have a different banner behind you every day when you're presenting remotely. Do an activity with it. Always do an activity with anything that you have hanging out. So you put up a nice poster that talks about conversational activities, or a nice poster that reminds you about the importance of punctuality. Do a classroom activity with it. Assign some kind of collaborative skill. And then, of course, the National Skills Coalition. That's where you're going to find really the latest updates. That's where you're going to find a lot of the resources and a lot of the statistics that you can use and share with your students. And I'm very fond, this is one of my favorite quotes. Business is clear that developing the right attitudes and attributes in people, such as resilience, respect, enthusiasm, and creativity, is just as important as academic or technical skills. In an ever more competitive jobs market, it is such qualities that will give our young talent a head start and also allow existing employees to progress to higher skilled and better paid roles.